Most great ideas don't start with certainty. They start with curiosity and courage. What is up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about best-selling books and their best principles to help you out with your best life. I am your co-host, Willie Blake. I'm here also with our other co-host, Mr. Ian Sturmer, and our guest, the founder of Champion Circle, Mr. John Kovacs Jr. is joining us for this awesome book as we jump into a new month and a new book. We are talking about today, How I Built This by Guy Raz. And this is actually a really cool book. I haven't read it before until we suggested it for the book club. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think that we're going to have a really good discussion today because we're going to jump into the topic of, I got this. Is it dangerous or is it just scary? And it's interesting that it's so interesting about that. And I'll just start off with a discussion. I always have to define terms. I don't know about you two, but I always have to define what the terms are because I've realized that whether it's communication with me and my wife, communication with me and people at Champion Circle, or past jobs, that it's the assumptions and the expectations that aren't communicated that really create about 90% of the problems. And a lot of times it's just like the definition of what the words are. So you got dangerous and then you got scary, right? Dangerous, this is the harmful type stuff. This is like unsafe. This is you going out and being reckless, right? That's dangerous. On the scary side, it's the new, it's the uncertain, it's the uncomfortable. Not something that's dangerous, right? But it's just something that's scary. Good example, dangerous is you jumping out of an airplane with no parachute. Boom, dangerous. You applying for a job that you don't feel like you're qualified for, that's scary, right? And I love how Guy goes into several examples when he talks about founders who have fear when they start their business, but it's not, they're just scared because of the unknown. It's not dangerous. They're not going to die from it, but it's the unknown of what happens. So excited to be able to have that discussion as we started out. And I'm just going to turn it right over to John and Ian so that we can continue this awesome thing.
Yeah, imagine
dyslexia. Goodness gracious.
You're good. Imagine a world where instead of going to a business advocate or someone who can help you set up your LLC, when you say, I'm going to start a business, and instead you roll up to the doctor's office and you say, I am starting a business. And so they pull out a needle and they take that needle straight to your forehead and they puncture through the skull and they go right to your brain and they inject something that turns off the fear mechanism of the frontal lobe of your brain. Imagine being able to just turn that off and say, I'm all in, I'm going for it. No risks are all risk, all reward, going down that path. And how much easier that would be for so many people. That sounds ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, right? That's not something that we do as humanity. We don't go to our doctor and say, hey, I'm about to ask this girl out and I am so scared. Could you just like turn off my fear for a minute? It is so human to have that fear, to have that scaredness. And we as humans have the alarm bells, the things that tell us what is both dangerous and what is not, right? And I love this topic because it is not only human nature for us to face fear, but it's also human nature for us to decide, I don't think jumping off this bridge is a good idea. Like there's certain things that tell us what is good and not good. And I love that because that is how we are designed. So if you think about it in that crazy example I just gave you, let's dial back to reality here for a second and just show you how easy and how simple it is to face fear or to focus on the things that we can do. They just bring a little anxiety, or they really offer a little bit of a different energy to us. And that's how facing that is vitally important for entrepreneurs. Do we go into the fog fearless? No, we're just about to we're just about to pee our pants just like everyone else, but there's something that tells us that everything will be okay as long as we try. And that's an interesting aspect, and that's hard to teach, right? Guy Raz has interviewed hundreds, and if not thousands already, some of the world's greatest business creators. And one by one, he has found that a lot of them were doing stuff that they did not know how to do, but yet they were doing several things. They were solving problems. They were chasing a solution that could not be solved or seen by the human eye. Sometimes they were just making a product or a service better. Just whatever. And you go into that darkness with the idea of, we have no idea how this is going to turn out. This is throwing paint at a wall or throwing darts blindfolded. Will it stick? But yet that is the entrepreneurial way. So sorry to bring in a weird angle to this, but just right off the bat, I mean, think about it. If you can step into the darkness or through that door that has no sign as to what is on the other side, then you have the ability to start something new, to create something great, and to be an entrepreneur, or just to do something that no one has done before.
Yeah, I think that's true. And overcoming that initial fear, overcoming that worry about it. And just to point out, I read an article a little while ago that said the stock market boom in the early 2000s, they attributed partly to a lot of stockbrokers on Xanax reducing their anxiety. And as a result, they were willing to take more wilder bets than they would have normally. And there was a stock market boom because of that, which later kind of turned into a bubble. But that's the other side of fear is when it gets into the danger instead of fear. But as we're thinking about that, there's kind of a pattern that goes from an excitement to a fear. And then if you move past that, you get to the joy. And a few years ago, my family and I were out in Hawaii, and we decided to do one of those parasailing things where they pull the little thing behind a boat, a speedboat, and you go up in the air on a little parachute. And it was really exciting to get into that little parachute gondola thing that we were sitting in. Looking forward to it. We started moving, and we got about 10 feet in the air, and I was terrified. That fear hit in. What am I doing? We got about 30 feet in the air, and the fear was gone. And I said, wow, this is beautiful. And it was great from then on. But there was a bump of fear in there. And if I had known that fear was going to come, I might not have ever sat in that parachute gondola. That might have stopped me. But once I moved beyond that, I mean, I was in a much more dangerous position 100 feet in the air than I was 10 feet in the air. But the fear was greater at 10 feet than it was at 100 feet. And I think in entrepreneurial side, the same thing happens. We get excited about an idea, and then we write that first check, whether it's our first rent check or we sign our name on the LLC agreement, and it's terrifying when there's not really a danger yet. The danger is when we're, trying to get that $10 million deal, that if it goes through, we lose everything, as opposed to just a little bit. So I think our brain is wired almost to be afraid of the small first step. more than the big step later on. So it's learning to overcome that first initial fear that's not even a danger. As we were talking in the green room before, I wrote down fear is an internal emotion. Fear is not an external reality. Danger is an external reality, but fear is what stops us, I think, more than actual danger does. So
You're spot on. It's I think it was Alex Hormozy who said that, like, you got the enthusiasm of the shiny object, and then you learn about it, and then you go into the valley of despair when you actually learn about not just the good stuff, but all the potential negative stuff that can go with it. And then and then you have to push past that. And once you hit that, like, acceptance of, oh, everything's going to be okay, that's where the growth happens. That's where the results start coming in. But a lot of people, once they hit the valley of despair, they're like, oh, this ain't going to work. So then they jump to the next thing of being like, ooh, shiny object. Ooh, shiny object. I've done that several times. Luckily, I'm sticking to one thing now, and it's actually working for me. So when you're absolutely right, Ian, when it comes to fear, it's interesting that I don't know why the first step is always the hardest. Is it because of the unknown, because of the ain't nobody done it before, or doesn't know anyone, or has people being like, oh, you shouldn't do that? I'm not thinking of an aunt that I have right now, that you shouldn't be doing it. It's just it's interesting that the first step is the scariest, but then it comes to, like, are you willing to take it past that first step? I think that's what's crucial about it.
That's a fascinating thought. I actually haven't thought of it in that particular perspective, because when you're on the high dive, right? When you're about to jump off the high dive, most people can climb the ladder and you don't actually see the water until you walk out to the edge. And then it's that first step off the high dive that is the feeling, the unknown, like, will I die? Will something happen that I cannot see or anticipate before you release? And that is interesting. And what is the equivalent of that to someone either starting a business or building something or launching a product or something that they have never done before? It doesn't have to be something that's never been done before. Let's go back to Roger Bannister. I know this story has been told so many times, but it's such a great one, because when we believe that we can do something that has not been done before, look, guys, I've run so many races before, and every single time my heart almost stops before the gun goes off, because I am scared, like crazy. And then as soon as I take that first step and I'm running around the corner of the first turn of the track, all of a sudden fear is gone and I am just in game mode, right? And I don't know why. I don't know why that fear hits. Or it's right before I step on stage to speak for an event. It's like that one moment, it's like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And then you just do it. And I don't know why, but it seems so human. But to go back to Roger Bannister, no one had run a 4-minute mile until Roger Bannister did it. And then within a few weeks, even weeks after he broke the 4-minute mile, people from all over were breaking it, including high school kids. And so if you think about that and you're doing something that you've never done before, you might want to take a step back and say, well, let's take the I might write this book, but the Roger Bannister effect, which is, now that I know that it's been done, I realize that anyone, even a Roger Bannister, can do it. I can do it too. And it doesn't eliminate fear, but it increases the next step after the first step of fear, right? To say, I'm on track. I can do this. It's been done before. I'm on a roll. And that effect can influence you to overcome any of the entrepreneurial highs and lows, the roller coaster of emotions. And that could essentially help you knowing that someone has gone before you. But if you're doing something that's never been done before, then the flip side of the Roger Bannister effect is let me be the first. Because no one has done it, why fear at all? What's going to happen if I do this? It will change the lives and the course of history for forever. And so when you think about it that way, sure, I know, easier said than done. But it is interesting if you think about it from that perspective, that it is that first step. It's not the second step or the third step. It's always the first step. And why? Can we take that physical experience out of jumping off the high dive? And once you've done it, you get out of the pool and you're like, woohoo, that was a rush. I'm going to do that again. And then you're more comfortable. And all of a sudden you can do it again and again and again. You might 1 or 2 times between, the first time and the last time, you might still have a little bit of anxiety or fear that comes with that first step, but you're so much more comfortable with it now. And so measuring your ability to manage that feeling could be a solution. Not the solution, but it could be. Kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah, I think that is. And as you were talking, just kind of reminded me of Tony Robbins is famous for his fire walk he does at his seminars. And I haven't done one of those yet, either the seminar or the fire walk. But apparently a fire walk is actually not really dangerous, as long as you have some basic rules to follow and know what you're doing with it. But it's that, hey, I can do something I never thought I can do. I can take that step that I never thought I could take before. And it's a great thing about this book is vicariously, we look at so many different entrepreneurs who faced all sorts of challenges, whether it was gaining knowledge, there's a lot of funding issues and getting an idea off the ground, how to take it from concept to reality, and all the different pitfalls that can be there. And we can learn from those and say, you know what? If Dave Thomas can do it, I can do it. And I'm trying to remember the names because there's so many people in here. But all these people who went beyond the challenges in front of them, beyond the fear, and just did it. It's like Roger Bannister. If they can do it, I can do it. Yes, it's new for me. Yes, it's scary for me. But the fact is, people jump out of airplanes all the time, and as long as they have a parachute, they're almost always safe. So I'll almost always be safe in what I do. So I think, as we take these examples, take these strengths from other people, and realize that the fear is not the reality. That's just us building something in our mind that's not reality. The image came to mind that if I go into a room in a strange house and I look around the room, it's not bad. Then you turn off the light. Even though I've seen that whole room, there's a little bit of fear that pops up in my head because I can't see it anymore. Even though I know what's in the room, I've already seen it. So it's getting rid of that mental imagery and realizing I can do this. I've seen people do it. I've done these things before. And not letting that stop you because it's not real. I guess that's what I keep saying in this. Fear is not real. Danger is real. Beware of danger. Jumping out of an airplane is scary. With a parachute, without a parachute, it's dangerous. Know the difference, I guess.
That's it. What's dangerous? Walking up to a bear cub with the mother around. That's dangerous. What's not dangerous? Taking a 15-minute walk. Even though we might fear that we don't have the time, fear that all our projects won't get done. It's just scary. It's just into the unknown. And maybe that's not the best example, but Ian gave some great examples to be able to counter my okay one that I gave. Fear is just that. It's not real. I think there's the acronym for it. It's like false evidences appearing real. They're just like, what are evidences? If I were to think of what are evidences, it's just things we think are there. That's an evidence. We can think that nope, not going to use that example. We can think that Baymax from Big Hero 6 is going to pop up and be the cuddly marshmallow that we can have, or we can think that our dreams are going to be coming true. We can visualize and do that. My mind went off on that whole Baymax thing. So I'm actually just going to turn it right back over to John so that I can get my mind back together.
What I love about this, Willie, is our minds are becoming, we've hit a cerebral level of thinking, and we're making sense of a deeper thought process. And for those listening to the show or watching the show, depending on your preference, we tend to do this. We tend to expand while we're discussing and go down a deeper rabbit hole that may or may not be necessary, but it's something of our brains in action trying to make the concept work. And so, Willie, I respect it because your brain was making analogies and visuals of what works. I was going to say one earlier and say, what's dangerous? Trying to talk to John when he's hangry. Okay, that's dangerous. Don't do that. No, that's like talking to a bear cub, So anyways, just make light of it. But what I love about this, and I just want to share like some personal anecdotes. First, I had listened to Guy Raz's How I Built This Podcast. And from episode 1 to episode like 130 or whatever, it was so cool. He started this as a project to interview some of the top business owners and to just learn their story and see how unique and how different, but yet what are the similarities to their successes. And he dives into the personal trials and tribulations that each person has. And I love it. I mean, I can name like 5 episodes right off the top of my head, like the guy who created Patagonia, the creation of Southwest Airlines, Ben and Jerry's. Okay. I'm forgetting her name, and Kate Spade, or there it is, the jewelry and purse company, right? There's just so many great episodes. And again, while their journeys were uniquely different, all in all, they were faced with a challenge, and those challenges presented problems that they had to figure out how to overcome. Some were able to solve that through funding. Some were able to solve that by just risking it all. Some of them were able to, wait out a couple of years and then bring back the project and go back into their thing. Some of them were working a side hustle so that they could afford the ability to transfer all their things. But no matter what it was that problem-solving aspect. Not only were they trying to solve a problem or a solution that the world needed, that there was a market for, okay, but they were also trying to solve the problem at hand, which is deciding which was dangerous and which was just fear. And each one of them had that desire, that burning feeling within them to overcome a challenge. And to me, that's the entrepreneurial spirit. Not to get spiritual in all this, but truly that spirit within us is that drive to do something that we just don't know, but yet it seems amazing. And I'll have one more example, which is when we were children and we played with the toys or the Barbie dolls or the cars, we imagined them doing the most insane things, like the little truck turned into a race car and it flew over the gap between the couches and landed on the pillow and in safety, and it was amazing. Or the superhero toy did this like crazy awesome flip in the air and then came down and landed safely. It was amazing. And our imaginations were completely untouched by this idea that there were dangers, because we believed anything was possible. So imagine going back to that and thinking, I can do anything.
Yeah, taking it from a spiritual to a mathematical equation here. When your desire for the reward or your passion is greater than your fear, it equals entrepreneur. You just have to build that desire, and either increase desire or decreased fear. Either one of those is going to help. And this book is great at probably both of those, because you're inspired by people's stories, but it also decreases the fear of what failure would mean. If you walk on a basketball court and you throw the ball and it's a foot short of the basket, do you say, I'm a failure, I'm never doing this again, and leave? Or do you put just a little bit more muscle behind it so that it goes further? It's not a failure, it's just learning process. So that fear can be removed from us. And I found that so many times that builds in your mind, but when you stop and say, what's the worst case? And I was talking to a friend some time ago and just talking about the market and jobs and things, and said, well, what would happen if you lost your job? I said, well, I guess I'd move back in my mom's house. He goes, oh, what kind of a plan is that? I said, well, that's a realistic plan. I'm not going to die. We're not going to starve to death. I'm not going to be, in a cardboard box under a bridge, because I know I've got a support system that I can go back with my mom. Not my first choice, but I love her, and it'd be nice to spend more time with her. But it's not a life and death situation. And so many of these entrepreneurs go through that. So we can borrow money, we can get loans, we can seek funding. And if it all falls through, we can start over again. We can run DoorDash and Uber on the side to make up for it, to repay whatever, to put food on the table. So there's fear stops us, but those aren't necessarily real dangers. And the more we sit down and figure out these plans and really what's the worst that could happen? I know we play those games around campfires as Boy Scouts, but in reality, the worst that can happen, most cases for an entrepreneur, is you have to start over again. Or you go back to the same thing you were doing before, which means you haven't lost anything. You're just at the same place you were earlier, but wiser. So, fear it's not real. And once you examine it, you realize that it's not that big of a deal. But instead, build your passion higher, and you too can be an entrepreneur. So,
you too can be an entrepreneur. Boom. There we go. Yeah. As we wrap up our final thoughts, I want to go off of Ian's question that he gave us, which is, what is the worst case scenario? What is it? Right? When I first started my coaching business and left Walmart, and my wife and I were like, how are we going to survive this? How are we going to be able to bring money in and survive on our savings? And we laid out exactly the amount of months that we're able to deal with without me going and getting a job. And it was breathtaking in a way of, we're actually going to be okay. What is the worst case scenario? I go back to Walmart. Can you imagine if the worst case scenario in any situation is you just going back to the place in which you were previously, right? Like, if you honestly think about it, the worst thing to not doing something is being in the same place. So, like, if you are in trying to get a relationship with a really cute girl, you not talking to the girl simply means at the end of the day, you are in the exact same place in which you are at, which means that anything that you do is a plus. So go and talk to the girl, go and start the business, go and do the idea that's going through your head as we talk about this, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to be where you are. That's it. So take the action forward.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la, don't be shy. You wanna I don't know the words, but I just thought I'd break out the song.
Wow.
All right. That was awesome, Willie. Mic drop. Seriously, that was great. My final thoughts are, take the risk. There's always a consequence, but the risk is worth it in the end. Know the difference between danger and fear. And when you can compartmentalize those, you can realize that the drastic change of fear associated with danger and death is completely different. And therefore, it can actually minimize the way you feel until you step into the darkness or the unknown. And that is a high risk and high reward. So take our examples, take our advice, and do something awesome. Don't do anything crazy, but do something awesome.
I think that's a good way. Do stuff that's awesome, not crazy. Don't do dumb stuff. Do smart stuff. And be willing to take those little risks that might seem big. And the fact is, they're probably not as big of a risk as we make them out to be. But the rewards are going to be probably better than we ever make them out to be. So, yeah, examine your fears and dream about your rewards. And I think we can do it.
Boom. There we go. Champions, thank you for joining us. And that's been another episode of Champion Reads. If you found inspiration in this episode, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as join us on our webpage, mychampionscircle.com, where you'll be able to find the link to our podcast, link to our socials, and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, champions, continue to be awesome. Continue to push past your fears, and always remember, everything forward is a plus. So go ahead and take that action. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.